Welcome to Health Styles, where we believe that everything you eat, drink, and think directly affects your health. I'm your host, Carole Dean. Did you know that regrowable seeds are disappearing? It's true. They're being replaced with seeds that will not grow without certain chemicals. GATT agreement demands that our farmers use these new chemically treated seeds. So what does this mean for our food supply? Well, Dr. John Roberts is an expert in this field, and he's our featured guest. Well, we're also going to focus on how we can grow our own organic food, even if you only have an apartment. So please stay tuned. Dr. Murray Susser has his questioning medicine section today on how we can keep our immune system healthy. And Dr. Deepak Chopra has his new perspective section on how our mind controls our bodies and how we can use this wonderful power that we have to improve our lives. So that's our show, and now let's start with our health tips section. Everyone says that you need lots of fiber, but just how much and where can you get the best fiber? Well, the Center for Science did a report for us, and they say be careful eating a cereal that says, well, you can have all your fiber with breakfast, because the mix of fiber from fruits, vegetables, and grains may be the magic key that reduces your risk of degenerative diseases. So be aware that the fiber on the labels that you may read will be 5 to 25% higher than the fiber actually is in the product. Light breads may say that they have 5 to 6 grams of fiber in 2 slices, but you better check out the ingredients, because light breads are really made with white flour, which is not good for you, and sometimes they put a soy fiber or and add it back to give you the fiber that you need. Now, did you know that some companies were actually adding cellulose, which is made from wood pulp, until the public complained? So always your best bet with bread is to stick with the whole wheat bread, because they are made from the whole grains, and it's much better for your body. And then there are several brands that have 5 to 6 grams of fiber in 2 slices. Actually, we have a full report from Center for Science that we'll mail to you if you call the number at the end of the show. It gives you the types of breads and the fat and sodium and the fiber content. Always in the health store, look for your health claims that are on your products, because you may find that those who have health claims have more fiber. To make a claim about cancer, it has to be low in fat and sodium and high in fiber. Plus, it has to be a good source of soluble fiber. Now, how many grams a day should you get? Well, most experts recommend 20 to 35 grams a day, but there's no reason not to go for 50 to 60 grams a day that you would get if you were eating a low-fat vegetarian diet. That's how you can really get healthy. To be a good source of fiber, a food must have at least 2.5 grams. High fiber needs 5 grams, and foods with at least 0.6 of a gram of soluble fiber that are marked with an asterisk mean that they are high in soluble fiber. Now it's time to go to Dr. Murray Susser. We'll be right back with our featured guest today, and we'll learn more about the chemicals in our seeds and what we can do and how we can grow things in our own homes.
Diet and exercise work together in strengthening the immune system. You can't overstate the importance of either one, especially diet, since your body is made of the substances that you put into it, nothing else. If you don't put something into your body, your body can't heal, it can't have that substance. That's why the concept of vitamins is so important, the concept of essential nutrients. Your diet has to have all the essential nutrients so that it can be healthy and keep the immune system, which is one of the more fragile parts of the body, healthy also. For example, your body can synthesize in the liver and in other organs all sorts of chemicals, all sorts of biochemicals which keep your body and your immune system functioning well. There are certain nutrients that are called essential nutrients. Your body cannot synthesize them. They have the same power as oxygen and water. You cannot substitute anything for oxygen and water, and the essential nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin C, vitamin E, these are all essential nutrients. Your body cannot function without them. You will die or at least be very ill if you do not have these nutrients. Once these nutrients are in your body, how do you keep them working right? Well, for one thing, you want to keep toxins out. We'll talk about that in the future. But what about exercise? If your muscles aren't working right, if your blood isn't flowing right, you're not going to have a healthy body. You're not going to be able to utilize your nutrients properly. Animals in the jungle exercise. I mean, I know we think of lions laying around in the sun and not doing much, but boy, when they get up and chase a zebra, they're really working hard. And that's what we have to do also. We have to pretend we're in the caves and in the jungles and in the forests where we were designed to live and function. And if we don't work at that level, then our bodies atrophy, they waste. They don't put the nutrients to proper use, they don't put them into the muscles and get the blood flowing the way we need to have happen so that our bodies are healthy. Therefore, as I said, exercise and diet work together.
Our guest today is Dr. John Roberts, and he is the Vice President for the Center for Living in Harmony. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Carole. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Well, the purpose for our show today is, one, we want to talk about the chemicals in our foods, what's happening, why it's happening, and then we want to go into how you can grow healthy produce, even if you have a small windowsill or an apartment, and what we can learn on that. So let's start with a quick overview of the pesticides in our foods.
There's such a range of pesticides, but pesticides are only part of the problem. There's also herbicides, chemicals sprayed to get rid of the weeds that are in the crops. There are fungicides to prevent fungal growth, insecticides to kill insects. There is a whole armamentarium, if you will, of chemicals that our food supply is subjected to. Some of these not too strong. In other words, in organic growing, certain chemicals are allowed, but these are more of a bacterial nature. Mm-hmm. And soaps and things like that, but then you get into the very high-powered chemicals, which can be lethal to human beings, even in very small doses.
Yes, and I think quite often that sometimes when they say, well, the flu's going around, it could be food poisoning. That's what some of my doctors have said. Same symptoms.
Yes, I wouldn't doubt that at all.
And that food poisoning could very well come from the chemicals.
Yes.
But what's so frightening now is that the chemical companies are buying up the seed manufacturers.
That is correct.
So, and they're going to coat these seeds with chemicals?
Yes. They are in fact doing that.
It's already started?
This is big business now, yes. If I might just go back a second, as far as the poisons that are taken in a food supply that has these applied during their growing cycle, one of the things that I think might be reflective in this flu-like symptomology is that many times our food is stored in the fat tissue, and these chemicals are stored in the fat tissue too, and there are some really compelling studies that suggest that if a person goes on a diet or a weight loss program where they're getting rid of the fats in the system, that these stored chemicals in the system are being released through the fat and deposited in the system and getting into the circulatory or the eliminative system and being retaken up into the system. So I think that's something that if a person is going to go on a diet and hasn't been careful about what they've been eating, they might want to pay some attention to. Because the chemicals will then react to them, and it would be like they really do get the flu. Yes. And you hear that a lot with people saying, that's very true. You know, I've been on a diet and I'm low on energy and I caught the flu. I think there are two things. I think that's one of them, but another condition, and this is one that we're really cautious of and hence very much educationally oriented at the Center for Living in Harmony, which by the way is in Valley Center, California, North San Diego County, is that there is not enough nutrition in the food these days. It is said by some doctors that the human digestive system is incapable of storing sufficient quantity of food. In other words, we just packed it full of food. Mm-hmm. It is incapable of holding sufficient food to derive the nutrients that are necessary for healthy human functions. We have to have it every day. We have to input nutrients every day. If you ate from the normal food chain every day and ate even wisely and as much as you could possibly eat, you would not be getting sufficient nutrients for normative human functioning. And by normative, I mean really at the top level possible, so you're enjoying the best quality of life, free from diseases, free from flus, free from these depressional states that so many people are going through, chronic fatigue syndrome and the like. So then basically you're saying that we have lost the nutrients in our food. Yes, and the way in which we have done that is we have, as the saying goes, we have mined our soils. In other words, by using a lot of hybrid seeds, throwing on a lot of commercial fertilizer, we have pulled the nutrients, mainly the mineral nutrients, out of the soil such that they are not there. Alchemy does not work in the soil. You cannot make a nutrient from a nutrient that is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So consequently, to get a totally nutritious food, it's necessary to have the nutrition in the soil so that the plant can take up these nutrients according to its innate genetic design.
Of course that makes sense,
so
right.
that it's there when you eat it. And then when you eat it, if you're in a good sound state of body and mind, your body is able to utilize these nutrients to the utmost. And if there's any kind of debilitation, then of course it'll be reduced.
But what's happening is that the nutrients going into the soil are all chemicals. We don't have, and over and over, and they're not really, so the soil is losing its nutritious value to us.
Exactly. In a standard commercial growing practice, there are 3 chemicals that are looked at. It's called NPK. It's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And these are the main chemicals. When you buy a fertilizer, it has these 3 by law written on it and the percentage within. But a healthy plant requires, well, we really don't know how many nutrients. When I say nutrients now, I mean elements, just primary elements. We know at least 16 are very essential, but some people say up to 32, and some say it may be far more than that.
Incredible.
And some of these may be in virtually infinitesimal amounts, but very critical.
Trace minerals.
Yes.
Trace
It's like
minerals.
chromium, for example, its value in a glucose tolerance factor, if one is hypoglycemic or diabetic. Very, very small amount necessary, but that small amount is key.
Is key to us, that's
Yes.
true. Because a friend of mine gave me some liquid minerals, and I took them, and after a week, the healing power of my body increased 100-fold.
Yes.
And I felt better, but watching, and my nails grew faster, so it's just the little trace minerals. And from what you're saying, we should be getting those from our food supply, but we're not.
That's absolutely correct. And one of the main things to be aware of also, Carole, is just because one buys organic, there is no assurance that you're going to be getting optimal nutrient balance within the foods. There are some organic growers that are less conscientious about what goes into the food than there are commercial growers. The main emphasis in organic growing is what does not go into the food, such as the things we've talked about, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and the like. But our emphasis is also on what does go into the food, the essential minerals that are there, the calcium, manganese, potash, phosphorus. All of these elements have to be there. And we follow the work that was originally done by Dr. William Albrecht, who was the head of the soils department at the University of Missouri. And his work is now being carried on by Neil Kinsey. And we had Neil at our center to do a symposium in July. And we had representatives from as far away as Mexico City and 6 states, universities of 6 states.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea is that Dr. Albrecht determined exactly what the ratios of calcium to magnesium to phosphorus and so forth should be in the soil so that we get proper nutrient balance in the plant so that we get them in the system.
Well then, now let's say that I want to grow some things in my apartment,
Yes.
all right? And how in the world do I get the right soil?
The best thing to do is to buy the soil from somebody who tests that soil for you.
Oh, go to a farm and buy some soil?
If that farm tests the soil. Now, one of the things that one has to be careful of, as I said, some organic growers are not necessarily putting good nutrition into the food. I talked to one man who incidentally wrote a book on the subject, but he said, I have come up with the ultimate solution to organic gardening. I've dug beds 6 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and 10 feet long in my backyard, and I filled these full of cow manure. Well, I personally wouldn't want to eat anything out of that garden. For example, if you grew lettuce in the wintertime where we have less hours of sunlight, the nutrients uptake by the lettuce would be very, very high, in fact, possibly toxically excessive in nitrates. So it's important that compost, manures be used judiciously according to what the needs of the soil are. And there's only one way to know what the needs of your soil are, or to have the proper balance in the soil, that if you were going to buy some soil and grow your own vegetables in your little pot or windowsill box or your backyard garden, you would know from the beginning that you had a soil that had the proper balance in it, and that is they have to be tested in a laboratory.
That's very important. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back because we want to learn more about the government, and there was a bill that was signed and what it means to us and what's going on with the chemicals, the petrochemical companies, and our seeds. Right now we're going to go to listen to Dr. Deepak Chopra. When he was in town, he was kind enough to come to my apartment so we could ask him some questions about the power of the mind. We'll be right back with Dr. John Roberts. This is our New Perspective section, and we're interviewing Dr. Deepak Chopra about his new book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And we have some questions for you. First is that in here you're saying that that you can do things with the stress in your life, with the toxins in your environment, and with your food and lifestyles to add 30 to 50 years to your life. So give us some ideas of these things.
Actually, the main thing to achieve is active mastery over your life. Active mastery means having complete autonomy over your life and the circumstances of your life. And there are 10 characteristics that people have who have active mastery over their life. First, they can get in touch with their spiritual core, because they know that the spirit is a real force. It's abstract, incomprehensible, mysterious, but it's as real as gravity, it's as real as time. To get in touch with your own spirituality is to be free. Secondly, people who have active mastery are able to deal with the toxins in their life. These toxins could be toxic food, toxic drink, toxic smoke, toxic relationships, toxic emotions.
They can get rid of these toxins if they have this mastery?
They are able to deal with them. Either they can avoid them or they can get rid of them. And there are techniques to do that I talk about in the book. People with active mastery have shed their need of approval because their internal reference point is not the ego, which lives in need of approval and is always fearful, because that's what the ego is. It lives in fear. Because they don't use their internal reference point as the ego, they don't need approval. The spirit is free. People with active mastery use the mirror of relationship for their own evolution, recognizing that those that you love and those that you hate are both mirrors of yourselves.
Yes.
So if you love someone, it's because you are attracted to them because they have something that you desire. And if you dislike someone, that's also because you're denying in yourself something that they're reflecting. To be able to use the mirror of relationship for one's evolution is another sign of active mastery. People with active mastery have an internal dialogue that says, how can I help, instead of what's in it for me.
How can I help? That's the question to ask.
You know, there are studies that show that those people who use me, my, and mine, and I all the time have about 3 times a higher rate of dying from heart disease at the same age than those
Dr.
people whose
Chopra.
internal dialogue is different.
Right.
These are published studies. People with active mastery are very conscious of the needs of the body. They recognize that the inner intelligence of the body is the ultimate and supreme genius, which mirrors the wisdom of the universe, and they can tap into it. People with active mastery have life-centered, present moment awareness, because they realize that this moment is as is. It's a precious gift for 15 billion years of evolutionary time.
Every moment is
This
so
moment
precious.
is as is because the whole universe is as is. To see the fullness in every moment and have your attention on it is to actually see God everywhere. Because the presence of God is everywhere, you have only to consciously embrace it with your attention.
Oh, thank you
People
so
with
much.
active mastery have relinquished the need for judgment. They don't carry that burden. People with active mastery replace fear-based behavior with love-based behavior. And people with active mastery see the whole universe as a projection of the self. Now, this is a lot to say in 2 minutes.
I know.
But I've given the techniques on how to
do it?
get that. Because when you get that, you escape from time-bound awareness into timeless awareness.
That's so
and when
important.
you go into timeless awareness, your body becomes ageless.
That's the secret to it. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Chopra. Our guest today is Dr. John Roberts, and he is the Vice President for the Center for Living in Harmony. And we appreciate your coming.
Thank you, Carole.
And we're talking about, we're focusing on 2 things. One, what's happening with our seeds. You know that many of the chemical companies are buying up all the small seed companies around the United States, and that the chemical companies are now starting to coat the seeds with herbicides and chemicals so that we're eating the food that we're getting is not as nutritious as it should be. And these are not regrowable seeds. That means that you can't go out and dry some ears of corn and plant them again next year. They won't grow. This puts the chemical companies in control, the way I see it.
That's very true.
That's right.
You couldn't get much greater control than that.
Than food supply, right?
That's correct.
Now, the EEC had a common catalog. Now, this was not something that was voted on. It went through it in the middle of the night. Can you tell us about it?
Well, the EEC, representatives from the member nations got together and formulated this catalog. There is a lot of speculation that this was designed to promote the interests of certain vested interests. Now, this was brought about for the European countries, but the United States also passed legislation in the last day of the Carter administration at about 3 o'clock in the morning that brought that same kind of common catalog concept to the United States. As a matter of fact, those who are familiar with it say that it virtually matches the European common catalog.
Just, well, I want to say that this catalog says you can only grow these seeds, right?
This particular catalog does not say you can only grow certain seeds. It says you can only sell certain seeds or transact these seeds even in a barter context.
Wow. So in other words, forget growing. If you can't buy them, you can't grow them. So you can only buy or trade on these seeds, and all the rest are not to be used.
That's correct. There is a major movement in this country to protect these seeds, and they're just sort of transacted between people on a network basis. But if you were to go down, if this legislation were to be signed into law by any president who comes into office, virtually overnight, you could not go down to your local seed house or through the catalogs that you may have sent for. It may be possible or impossible for you to buy the seeds of your choice after that catalog goes into effect.
So you say that when people found out about this, they wrote in?
Well, it was kept secret, and about 3 weeks before it came up for passage, word got leaked out, and it resulted in the biggest write-in campaign in the history of the USDA. People were so vociferously against this, and yet it passed anyway, and it passed on piggybacked on a piece of legislation that didn't even remotely relate to it.
They just put it through in the middle of the night.
Ramrodded it through would be my word.
Okay, well then now with the GATT agreement, which says that there's a certain list of seeds that you can grow, and if the seeds aren't on that list, you can't grow them. And that's why the farmers in England right now, some of them are before the courts because they were growing seeds that the grandfathers grew, and they're saying, no, you can't do that, and they're fining them for it. But is it more expensive than, are these chemically treated seeds more expensive than the old seeds?
Profoundly more.
Twice, 3 times?
Hundreds of times in some cases.
Wow.
For example, I've used prior the example of watermelon, but if you want to take the watermelon even a step further, if you want to buy the seedless watermelon seeds, these are called tetraploids in genetic terms, they are enormously more expensive. You buy the seeds by the seed and not by the weight.
Wow.
And
you buy one seed?
Yes.
What does one seed cost?
Well, they're clumped. In other words, you buy a minimum of 500, then 1,000 and 5,000, and the price drops as it goes up. But it's much more expensive than just a regular hybrid watermelon, which can be hundreds of times more expensive than a standard open pollinated seed.
Incredible.
And of course, immeasurably more expensive than an open pollinated if you save your own open pollinated seeds yourself.
So the bottom line is, with the chemical companies buying up the seed companies, we can expect food to go up.
Very likely. It's almost, I would say it's an inevitable consequence.
It will go up in cost and down in nutrition.
To say it'll go down in nutrition depends. That is a likely prospect because there is not a priority amongst geneticists to breed for nutrition at this time.
And they certainly are not doing anything with the soil to improve it, as we discussed.
That's basically true.
All right, well now I know that the Center for Living Harmony, the most important thing you focus on there is teaching people how to grow their own food. And so can you give us some information on that?
Yes. The Center for Living in Harmony has as its fundamental goal, or one of its fundamental goals, to teach people to be more self-reliant. And we feel that that begins by people being informed, to be knowledgeable. So we do a lot of educational work at low cost to teach people how to grow. I do most of the classes, and the morning is in classroom and the afternoon is in the field. So I have found that it's important for people to understand, but then they have to get their hands on a shovel or a fork to really make it work. Mm-hmm. But we teach people how to grow food healthily, starting with the seed and then building up the soil nutrition and taking care of the soil and the plant all the way through to harvest time, where you bring the food in and put it on the table. Now, many people say, well, I don't have enough space to grow my own food, so what can I do about it? Well, our assertion is you do have enough space. If you have a windowsill, you have enough space, because you could take a little 6-inch flower pot and you could raise a small kind of cucumber, a small eggplant,
really?
Lettuces, herbs, and the like. And we teach people how to do this, or to take a window box arrangement. And if a person says, I really don't want to do any growing, we say, well, that's okay, that's your choice. But if you know how to grow and you know how nutrition gets in the plant, then you can talk to your local grower, your farmer's market representative, your community-supported agricultural grower, and ask them meaningful questions about how they grow, so that you can have the assurances that the maximum nutrition is in the food that you're buying.
Fantastic, John. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this information.
You're very welcome.